I was sipping my morning coffee, barefoot on my porch, when I saw her, Karen, the HOA president, standing in the middle of my lawn, screaming into a phone that wouldn't work. Surrounded by a posse of guys in cheap suits clutching laptops that just kept spinning. Why? Because I just ripped out the fiber optic line they'd buried across my property without asking and sent them a $15,000 bill with a grin that could light up Times Square. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, whoa, what led to that? Stick around, because this is a wild ride through petty revenge, legal loopholes, and one woman's meltdown so epic it could have been a Netflix special. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare? I'd love to hear your stories while I spill mine. It all started on a quiet Tuesday in Franklin Heights, a sleepy little subdivision just outside Raleigh. The sun was barely up, painting the sky orange, and I was out front in my old UNC sweatshirt, glaring at a patch of dandelions that refused to die. That's when I spotted them, little red and yellow flags poking out of my grass like some kind of utility company Easter egg hunt I didn't sign up for. I hadn't called anyone. I hadn't approved anything. And I sure as hell didn't invite a crew to turn my yard into a construction zone. By noon, 2 unmarked vans rolled up, not city vehicles, just generic white ones with a logo that looked like it was designed in Microsoft Paint. Out hopped a handful of guys with shovels and a trenching machine, acting like they owned the place. I strolled over, coffee still in hand, and tried the polite approach. Hey, guys, what's going on here? The lead dude, tall, scruffy, with a headset like he was running a call center, barely glanced at me. Just doing our job, man, he muttered, then cranked up his music and walked off. I stood there, steam practically pouring out of my ears, as they started carving a jagged line through my lawn like it was a giant etch-a-sketch. That night, I came home to a mess, a sloppy trench zigzagging across my front yard, the grass tossed back on top like a bad toupee. Taped to my door was a note, not even on letterhead, just a scrap of paper that read, HOA network upgrade. Thanks for your cooperation. No signature, no number, just pure arrogance assuming I'd be cool with it. Spoiler, I wasn't. I fired off a voicemail to the HOA office, then an email, nothing. Not even a, we'll get back to you. That's when I knew this wasn't just rude, it was shady. So, I called the city. The clerk, a chipper woman named Emily, pulled up my address. Nope, no permits filed here, sir, she said, her voice way too sunny for the rage building in my chest. I asked again, thinking maybe it was a neighborhood-wide thing. Nada, she chirped. That's when it hit me. Someone was lying, and they were probably standing on my grass doing it. The next day, I saw her, Karen, striding down Maple Lane in her teal tracksuit, clipboard in hand like a scepter, those oversized sunglasses perched on her nose like she was auditioning for a reality show. She spotted me by the trench and flashed a smile so fake it could have been plastic. Morning, Tom, she sang. Mind telling me why my yard looks like a war zone? I asked, keeping my tone even. Oh, it's just a fiber optic line, she said, waving a hand like she was dismissing a fly. We're boosting the neighborhood's internet. Big win for everyone. Without asking, I shot back. She smirked. It's common property, Tom. Runs through everyone's yard. Not this yard, I said, crossing my arms. Her laugh was sharp, like a fork on a plate. You signed the agreement, hon. Everyone did. Except I hadn't. And that's where this gets juicy. See, my house? It's the original model home for Franklin Heights, bought straight from the builder back in 2012, before Karen and her HOA cronies turned this place into their personal fiefdom. I never joined their little club, county records proved it then, and they prove it now. My property's grandfathered in, free from their rules. Karen either didn't know, didn't care, or figured I'd just nod and take it. Big mistake. I didn't yell. I didn't storm off. I just said, I'll look into it, and walked away, already plotting. Inside, I was buzzing part fury, part glee, because I could already see her smug little empire crumbling. I spent that night digging through records, property deeds, county maps, HOA filings. 0 easements. 0 permits. That cable? Illegal as a $3 bill. And I was about to make them pay for it, literally. So there I was, Tom from Franklin Heights, sitting on a goldmine of proof that Karen and her HOA posse had no right to turn my lawn into their personal fiber optic playground. I could have gone straight to court, but where's the fun in that? I wanted them to feel this, slowly, deeply, like a paper cut you don't notice until it stings. And trust me, by the time I was done, Karen's clipboard would be shaking in her hands. I started simple, documentation. I grabbed my phone and snapped photos of the trench, every uneven clump of dirt, every half-buried cable peeking out like a guilty secret. I measured it 8 inches deep when code says 12. Shoddy work, rushed, like they thought no one would care. I cared. I emailed the HOA one last time, CCing the city, just to have it in writing. Explain this or remove it. No reply. Not even a bounce back. Their silence was louder than a jackhammer, and it told me everything Karen thought she'd won. While I waited, I brewed a plan over a cold beer on my back porch, the kind of plan that feels like a warm hug from justice itself. I wasn't just some guy with a grudge. I'd spent 8 years as a civil engineer before switching to freelance consulting. I knew plats, permits, and property law like the back of my hand. Karen didn't know who she was messing with, and that was her first mistake. The next morning, I drove to the Wake County Records office. No online nonsense. I wanted hard copies, stamped and signed. The clerk, a guy named Mike with a tie that screamed, "I gave up in 2015, handed me everything. My deed, the subdivision map, a big fat nothing where an easement should have been." He smirked when I told him about the trench. "Yeah, they're screwed," he said, sliding the papers over. "No permit, no rights." I walked out with a grin and a stack of ammo. Back home, I called my buddy Josh, who still works in city infrastructure. He swung by that afternoon with a voltage tester and a six-pack. We cracked open the beers, and he checked the line, live, active, and poorly insulated. "One good rain, and this thing's toast," he said, shaking his head. "They cut corners bad." I nodded, sipping my IPA, already picturing Karen's face when this blew up. Meanwhile, across town, Karen was busy playing Queen Bee. My neighbor Sarah texted me that same day she'd seen Karen at the community center, handing out glossy flyers like campaign promises. "New high-speed internet, courtesy of your HOA," it bragged. Sarah snapped a pic and sent it over. The kicker? "Enjoy faster service at no extra cost. Thanks for your patience during installation." My jaw hit the floor. I didn't get faster service. I didn't even get a login. They built a network I couldn't use on my land, without asking. The audacity was so thick I could have framed it. That's when I decided. This cable wasn't just coming out, it was going to cost them. I marked the trench with little blue flags, like a treasure map only I could read, and waited for Saturday. Nothing suspicious about yard work on a weekend, right? I invited Josh and a couple other buddies over. Mike from the records office even showed up, lured by the promise of burgers and chaos. We turned it into a party, grill sizzling, music blasting, and me with a shovel, digging like I was searching for gold. "What you after, Tom?" Josh asked, flipping a burger. "Just tidying up what the HOA left," I said with a wink. We laughed, clinked bottles, and kept going. By late afternoon, I hit it, the thick black cable, right where I'd traced it. I followed it to a connection box half buried under my azaleas, no lock, no label, just begging to be unplugged. One twist of a wrench, and it was done. I didn't slice it. I'm not that guy. I just lifted it out like a weed. My yard, my rules. 15 minutes later, the neighborhood's Wi-Fi crashed harder than a toddler on a sugar high. My phone lit up. Text from Sarah, from my buddy Chris down the street. "You lose internet too? What's happening?" I just kept flipping burgers, whistling like nothing was wrong. Then came the storm. Karen marched across my lawn like a general in a teal tracksuit, flanked by 2 HOA board members, Greg and Lisa, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else, and a pair of tech guys in polos, laptops open and useless. She was yelling into her phone, or trying to. It was dead, of course. The irony was delicious. She spotted me by the grill, shovel in hand, and pointed like I'd stolen her crown. "What did you do, Tom?" she screeched. I tilted my head, all innocent. "Just fixing my lawn, Karen. You said I was responsible for it, right? Got the letter and everything." Her face twisted like she'd bitten into a lemon, and she started ranting vandalism, lawsuits, the works. I let her tire herself out, then handed her an envelope. Inside? Photos, maps, my deed, and a $15,000 invoice. Lawn repair, property hassle, the whole deal. "Due in 30 days, I said, calm as a summer breeze. "Or we can let the county sort it out." She snatched it, flipped through, and laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "You think we're paying you 15 grand because you dug up our line?" "No," I said, leaning on my shovel. "I think you'll pay because I can prove it's illegal." Greg pulled her aside, whispering fast. "I caught no permits, and contractor screwed us," before she spun back, eyes blazing. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I shrugged. Doubt it. What she didn't know. I'd already mailed a certified letter to the county, receipt required. And oh, the next day? That's when the cops rolled up. I was knee-deep in sod, headphones blasting Springsteen, when the shadow of a patrol car slid across my shovel. 2 cops, one older guy with a coffee cup and a vibe like he'd seen it all, the other a rookie still figuring out how to wear the badge, stepped onto my lawn just as Karen came charging down Maple Lane like a teal tornado, her clipboard flapping like a battle flag. She'd called the cavalry, thinking she'd finally caught me, but what she didn't know was that I'd already turned her war into my win. The older cop, Officer Daniels, tipped his head. You the homeowner? Yes, sir, I said, pulling out an earbud. Before I could guess what Karen had cooked up, she launched in, pointing at me like I was public enemy number 1. He sabotaged our infrastructure, she shrieked, waving a stack of papers. Tampered with utilities. Endangered the whole neighborhood. The rookie blinked, clearly lost, while Daniels sipped his coffee, unfazed. Mind telling us your side, sir? Daniels asked, his tone so calm it almost felt like a trap. I nodded, wiped my hands on my jeans, and pulled out my own envelope, neat, organized, lethal. Happy to, I said, handing it over. Inside were my property deed, county maps, emails to the HOA with no replies, and a printout from the city showing 0 permits for that trench. I'd even tossed in pics of the cable shallow, sloppy, illegal. This isn't HOA land, I said. Never has been. They dug without asking, broke code, and sent me a fine for not fixing their mess. Daniels flipped through, his eyebrow climbing higher with every page. Karen kept squawking. It's for the community. He's lying. But the rookie finally cut in. Ma'am, do you have a permit for this? Her mouth snapped shut, just for a second, before she mumbled. The contractor handled it. Daniels pressed, so the HOA didn't file anything? She floundered, looking to Greg and Lisa, her board member minions, who suddenly found the grass fascinating. Greg muttered, we thought it was covered under community upgrades. Daniels handed Karen back her papers. Thoughts aren't permits, he said dryly. Across town, my neighbor Sarah was texting me updates. She'd spotted Karen's car peeling out of the community center earlier, probably right after she dialed 911. She's losing it, Sarah wrote. Told everyone you're a menace. I smirked, picturing Karen's meltdown while I stood there, cool as a cucumber, watching Daniels put the pieces together. So, he said, turning to me, you're not in the HOA? Nope, I replied. They keep acting like I am. Dug this without permission, no easement, nothing. Karen tried pivoting, something about neighborhood safety, but Daniels shut it down. This looks civil to me, he said. And from what I see, he's within his rights to remove it. Then came the kicker. If you push this, ma'am, the HO might face fines for unpermitted work. Karen's face went ghost white. The rookie scribbled notes. Daniels gave me a nod, like he was secretly cheering me on, and they left. Karen stood there, fuming, then hissed, this isn't over, before storming off with Greg and Lisa trailing like scolded kids. I figured that'd be the end, cops on my side, Karen humiliated. But 2 days later, a fancy envelope slid under my door from some cut-rate law firm in Durham. A cease and desist, accusing me of willful destruction and demanding I pay to fix their precious cable. It was so badly written I almost laughed. Spelling errors, vague threats, no grasp of property law. They'd clearly scraped the bottom of the legal barrel. I forwarded it to my buddy Matt, a lawyer who lives for this stuff. He read it over FaceTime, cackling. This is a joke, Tom. They've got nothing. Matt drafted a reply that was pure gold, professional, sharp, and dripping with try me. We restated my rights, attached every document again, and added a zinger. If you proceed, we'll open discovery, emails, finances, the works. Pay the $15,000 or see you in court. We sent it certified, and I leaned back, imagining Karen's reaction when it landed. Silence followed. 1 week, 2 weeks, nothing. I started to think she'd backed off. Then came the neighborhood meeting notice, slipped under every door in Franklin Heights, emergency HOA session, infrastructure and transparency. Translation? Damage control. I went, not to talk, but to watch. The community center was packed, people who never cared about HOA nonsense now crammed in, buzzing with questions. Karen stood up front, sweating under the fluorescent lights, trying to spin her streamlining communication spiel. It wasn't landing. A guy named Brian stood up. Why's my internet still out? A woman, Jen, chimed in, who approved digging up yards. Then Chris, my buddy from down the street, Dropped the real spark. I checked my records. I'm not in the HOA either. How many of us aren't? The room erupted. Turns out, half a dozen homes, like mine, predated the HOA charter. Karen's been bluffing her power for years, and no one noticed until now. She stammered, deflecting, but the crowd turned. Greg and Lisa shrank in their seats, and by the end, Karen looked like a deflated balloon. I just sat there, arms crossed, soaking in the chaos. A week later, a certified letter arrived, a check for $15,000, no note, no apology. I thought I'd won. But Karen? She wasn't done yet. I was cashing my $15,000 check at the bank, still riding the high of watching Karen's HOA empire crack like cheap drywall, when I got a text from Sarah. They're back. Your yard. Now. I sped home, heart pounding not from fear, but from the sheer thrill of round two, and there they were, a new crew, different uniforms, same shovels, digging up my lawn again like nothing had happened. Karen hadn't just doubled down, she'd gone all in, and I was about to make her regret it. I pulled into my driveway, tires crunching gravel, and stepped out to face the scene. The crew leader, a guy with a buzz cut and a clipboard fancier than Karen's, didn't even flinch when I walked up. What's this? I asked, voice steady but sharp. Reinstalling the fiber line, he said, like it was no big deal. HOA's got a new easement agreement. I laughed, loud, straight from the gut, because what agreement? I hadn't signed a damn thing. Show me the permit, I said. He shrugged. Not my job. Just following orders. I asked for his boss's number. Voicemail. Classic. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just watched them dig, sipping iced tea from my porch, waving every now and then to mess with their heads. Inside, I was a live wire furious, sure, but buzzing with the kind of energy you get when you know you're about to win big. See, Karen wasn't just reinstalling a cable. She was trying to set a precedent, to sneak it in and claim some legal loophole later. It was sneaky, desperate, and so her. But I don't fold. I sharpen. While they patched my lawn, I made calls. First, the county, no permit, no surprise. Then I dug into the latest HOA newsletter Sarah had slipped me. Buried on page 4. Network reinstatement underway, stay tuned. No details, no consent, just vague HOA speak implying it was all legit. It wasn't. Across town, Karen was probably sipping Chardonnay, thinking she'd outsmarted me. She hadn't. The crew finished by dusk, leaving my yard looking like a bad quilt. Sod slapped down, cable buried, smug as ever. I waited an hour, then called Josh, my city infrastructure guy. He rolled up with his tester and a grin. Same crap work, he said, poking the trench. Too shallow, no insulation, total violation. I handed him a coffee and a copy of Karen's old cease and desist letter for kicks. He snorted. They're toast. Next, I rang Matt, my lawyer buddy. We drafted a new letter, short, brutal, no mercy. Remove this within 72 hours, it read, plus $5,500 for new damages, or we're suing. You've trespassed twice now. We attached Josh's notes, county records, everything. Send it certified, signature required. I leaned back, picturing Karen's face when it hit her desk, priceless. Meanwhile, Franklin Heights was buzzing. Sarah said the neighborhood WhatsApp group was on fire, people mad about spotty internet, others asking why their yards got dug up too. Brian, the guy from the meeting, posted pics of his own trench. HOA said it's mandatory. News to me. Jen chimed in. I never agreed to this. The tide was turning, and Karen didn't even know it. 3 days later, no response, just silence. But then Josh texted, city's on to them. Inspector filed a report. Turns out, he tipped off a compliance officer, who'd swung by my place unannounced. One look at the trench, and the guy was scribbling violations faster than I could blink. Unpermitted work, safety breaches, the works. He'd even asked about the first dig, and I handed over my whole file. This'll sting, he said, smirking. HOA's got a hearing next week. That same afternoon, Karen's reign started to crumble. Sarah called me, voice giddy. She's out, Tom. Resigned. Officially, it was personal reasons, but we all knew she'd cracked. Word was, she'd greenlit this second dig solo. No board approval, hoping to save face. It backfired hard. Greg and Lisa spilled to the neighbors at a coffee shop meetup. Karen had screamed at them when they questioned her, then stormed out. Half the HOA didn't even know she'd tried again. The contractor took heat too, fined for skipping permits, cutting corners. One worker flipped, told the city they'd been ordered to ignore the homeowner. Ouch. The new HOA president, a woman named Rachel, showed up at my door that evening, nervous as a cat in a thunderstorm. "Tom, I'm so sorry," she said, handing me a $5,500 check. "This won't happen again." I took it, handed her a notarized letter of my own. "No more stunts, or I sue. I'm not in your HOA, never will be." She nodded, practically bowing, and left. I thought that was it. Lawn mine, Karen gone, victory sweet. But the next day, Chris texted, "Dude, check your mailbox." Inside? A notice from the city, HOA fined $25,000, cable ordered removed. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. Karen's legacy? A pile of dirt and a bill she'd never outrun. I was kicking back on my porch, sipping a cold one and admiring my freshly cable-free lawn, when I saw Brian jogging up Maple Lane, waving like he'd just won the lottery. "Tom, you gotta see this," he yelled, holding up his phone. The city had just posted the HOA hearing results online, $25,000 in fines, a public smackdown, and an order to rip out every inch of that illegal fiber line, starting with my yard. Karen's grand plan? Dead and buried, just like her reputation. The crew showed up the next morning, not the shady contractor from before, but a legit city outfit, all orange vests and apologies. They dug up the trench, coiled the cable like a defeated snake, and patched my lawn proper this time. I stood there, coffee in hand, watching them work, feeling a spark of pure, petty joy. Every shovel scoop was a middle finger to Karen's reign, and I wasn't the only one grinning. Sarah popped by with donuts, saying, "This is better than reality TV." She wasn't wrong. Word spread fast. By noon, half of Franklin Heights was whispering about the fines. $25,000 wasn't chump change, and the HOA's budget was already tight from Karen's upgrades. Chris texted me a screenshot from the WhatsApp group. "Who's paying for this mess?" Jen posted next. "Not me. I never voted for it." Brian chimed in. "Check your deeds, people. We might not owe them squat." The rebellion I'd sparked was growing legs, and I was here for it. Meanwhile, across town, Rachel, the new HOA president, was scrambling. Sarah said she'd seen her at the community center, fielding angry calls from residents who'd finally woken up. "She's got no clue how to fix this," Sarah laughed, munching a donut. Karen left her a dumpster fire. I nodded, picturing Rachel drowning in paperwork while I kicked back. My $5,500 check already cashed, and my $15,000 one framed on my wall like a trophy. That afternoon, I got a call from Josh. "You'll love this," he said, voice crackling with glee. The contractors singing. Admitted they knew the second dig was sketchy, Karen pushed them anyway. Turns out, the city had leaned hard, threatened bigger fines, and one worker cracked, spilling about her "don't ask, just dig" orders. Josh added, "They're banned from city jobs now." Total wipeout. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Karen's fingerprints were all over this disaster, and she wasn't even around to dodge the fallout. Back home, I decided to dig a little myself, not dirt, but records. I pulled up the HOA charter online, public now, thanks to the hearing, and found gold, sloppy bylaws, missing signatures, and a clause that only applied to homes built after 2013. My place? 2012. Brian's? Same. At least 8 houses were exempt, and Karen had been banking on us not noticing. I emailed the file to Chris, Brian, and Jen with a note. "We're free. Spread the word." By nightfall, the WhatsApp group was a war zone, people demanding audits, refunds, even a new board. The next day, Rachel knocked on my door again, looking like she hadn't slept in a week. "Tom, can we talk?" she asked, clutching a binder. I let her in, curious. "I'm trying to clean this up," she said, voice shaky. Karen hid so much, unapproved contracts, drained reserves. "We're broke." She slid me a list. $80,000 spent on the fiber fiasco, no permits, no returns. "I just want peace," she pleaded. "No more digging?" I asked. "Never," she swore. I nodded. "Then we're good." But peace didn't last. 2 days later, Sarah rushed over, eyes wide. "Karen's back," she gasped. Not in person, thank God, but in spirit. A neighbor found an old HOA flyer in their mailbox, dated a week ago, bragging about future-proofing Franklin Heights with minimal disruption. It was Karen's last jab, mailed before she bailed, and it landed like a spark in dry grass. People flooded the WhatsApp group again. "She lied to us." "Where's the money?" Rachel posted a shaky apology. "We're investigating. Please be patient." I couldn't help it. I laughed. Karen was gone, but her ghost was still stirring the pot, and I was loving every second. The city crew finished my yard that afternoon, leaving it smoother than ever. I snapped a pic and sent it to Josh, victory lap. He replied, legend. That night, I grilled burgers, cracked a beer, and toasted to the chaos I'd turned into triumph. Karen thought she'd bury me, but I'd buried her legacy instead. I was hosing down my grill, the sun dipping low over Franklin Heights, when Chris jogged up, grinning like he'd just found buried treasure. Tom, you're famous, he said, shoving his phone in my face. Someone had posted my saga on a local Facebook group, the guy who beat the HOA Karen, complete with pics of my pristine lawn and a blurry shot of Karen's teal tracksuit meltdown. Comments were pouring in. Hero, tell us more. I smirked, because this wasn't just a win, it was a legend, and I was ready to close the book on it. Hey, if you've stuck with me this far, you're the real MVPs. Drop a comment below. Ever had a Karen try to steamroll you? Or maybe hit that subscribe button if you're loving this tale of petty justice. I'd say we've earned it after all this dirt. The post spread like wildfire. By morning, it had 200 shares, and my inbox was buzzing with neighbors I barely knew. Jen wrote, "You're why I'm checking my deed." Brian added, "HOA's scared of you now, keep it up." Even Josh chimed in, "City Hall's still laughing about this." I leaned back in my kitchen, coffee in hand, soaking it in. Karen's reign was toast, and I'd turned her power trip into a neighborhood wake-up call. Across town, Rachel was holding an emergency HOA meeting, second one that month. Sarah snuck in and live texted me the chaos. "Rooms packed," she wrote. "People want blood, or at least their dues back." Rachel tried to calm the storm, promising audits and transparency, but the damage was done. Someone yelled, "Where'd $80,000 go?" Another demanded, "Why'd Karen get a free pass?" Sarah added, "She's sweating bullets, keep saying we're fixing it." I chuckled, picturing the scene while I watered my lawn, now a symbol of everything Karen couldn't touch. Back home, I got a surprise, a handwritten note from Rachel, slipped under my door. "Tom, you've changed things," it read. "We're dissolving the old board, starting over. No more stunts, I promise." Attached was a county doc. The fiber project officially scrapped, fines paid, HOA on probation. I taped it next to my $15,000 check frame, my little wall of glory. Rachel wasn't Karen, and that was enough for me to call it peace. But the real kicker came that afternoon. Chris swung by with a six-pack and a story. "Guess who I saw at the gas station," he said, cracking a beer. Karen, teal tracksuit and all, loading a U-Haul. She'd been spotted packing up, rumor was. She was skipping town, tail between her legs. "Couldn't even look me in the eye," Chris laughed. I raised my bottle. "To her retirement, may it be quiet." We clinked, and I felt it, a weight lifting, a chapter slamming shut. The next day, I walked my yard, grass soft underfoot, no trenches, no flags, just mine. I'd fought for it, not with fists, but with paper, patience, and a shovel, and won. The WhatsApp group quieted down, the HOA limped along under Rachel, and Franklin Heights felt lighter, like we'd all exhaled. Sarah stopped by, grinning. "You're the guy who broke the spell," she said. "Maybe," I shrugged, "or just the guy who wouldn't bend." Looking back, it wasn't about the money, though $20,500 total wasn't bad, or even the cable. It was principle. Karen thought she could bully her way into my space, my rights, and I'd just smile and take it. Nah. I read contracts for fun, once haggled a car dealer into throwing in free tires, and I sure as hell wasn't letting some HOA queen turn my lawn into her playground. Every time I see that empty stretch where the trench used to be, I feel it, a quiet, stubborn pride. It's not just grass. It's a line in the dirt, a boundary I drew, a reminder you don't mess with someone who knows their worth. That was it, my war with Karen, starting with her squealing on my lawn and ending with her truck leaving. Franklin Heights won't forget it, and neither will I. Post in the comments what you would do in that situation. Dig up the cable? Call the police? Or just sit back and watch it crash? I gave it my best shot, and damn, it felt good.